Poor orphan girl buys coffee for a man in a wheelchair, unaware he's her father and a millionaire. Before we begin, just know, no matter where you are in the world, I'm glad you're here. The October rain drummed against the windows of Rose's café as 8-year-old Emma Watson pressed her face against the cold glass, counting the coins in her small, weathered purse. $3.47. Enough for one hot chocolate and maybe a day-old muffin. Can I help you, sweetheart? Mrs. Rodriguez smiled warmly from behind the counter, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. Emma approached hesitantly, her worn sneakers squeaking on the tile floor. One small hot chocolate, please. As Mrs. Rodriguez prepared her drink, Emma noticed a girl about her age sitting alone in a wheelchair near the window. The girl's blonde hair was perfectly styled, and she wore an expensive-looking pink coat, but her eyes seemed sad as she stared out at the rain. Emma watched as the girl wheeled closer to the counter, struggling slightly to reach the high surface. "Excuse me," the girl said softly. "Could I have a chocolate chip cookie and some warm milk?" Mrs. Rodriguez nodded, but when the girl reached for her purse, her face fell. "Oh no, I think I dropped my wallet outside." Without hesitation, Emma stepped forward. "I'll pay for it," she announced, pulling out her precious coins. The blonde girl's eyes widened. "But you don't even know me." "I'm Emma. Now I do." Emma's smile was radiant as she counted out the exact change for the cookie and milk, leaving her with just enough for her own hot chocolate. "I'm Lily," the girl whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "But why would you?" "Because everyone deserves something warm on a cold day," Emma replied simply, accepting her hot chocolate from the amazed Mrs. Rodriguez. As they sat together, Lily asked, "Don't your parents wonder where you are?" Emma's face grew quiet. "I live with my grandmother. She's at work." She didn't mention that Grandma Margaret worked 3 jobs just to keep their tiny apartment, or that Emma often wandered the neighborhood alone after school. Lily nodded thoughtfully. "My dad's always working too. My babysitter was supposed to pick me up, but she's running late." They talked until a black sedan pulled up outside. A uniformed driver stepped out, and Lily's expression changed. "That's my ride." She paused, looking at Emma with genuine warmth. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "Probably," Emma said, though she knew she'd have to save her allowance for another 2 days. As Lily was helped into the car, she pressed something into Emma's hand. "Thank you for being my friend." Emma looked down to find a small silver bracelet. Something that clearly cost more than Emma's family spent on groceries in a week, but it was the word friend that made her heart soar. Watching the expensive car disappear into the rain, Emma had no idea that she'd just befriended the daughter of one of the city's wealthiest men. All she knew was that tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Emma pushed open the creaky door of the basement apartment she shared with her grandmother, the sound echoing through their 2 small rooms. The walls were thin, the furniture mismatched. "From garage sales, but it was home." "Grandma, I'm back," she called, but only silence answered. Of course, it was Tuesday, which meant Margaret Watson was cleaning offices downtown until 10 o'clock. Emma opened their nearly empty refrigerator and found a note taped to the milk carton. "Sweetheart, there's soup on the stove and bread. In the cupboard. Do your homework and don't wait up. Love you more than the stars, Grandma Maggie." At 72, Margaret worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, watching the neighbor's baby on weekends, and helping at the local food bank on Thursday mornings. She'd been doing this for 6 years now, ever since Emma's parents died in a car accident when Emma was just 2 years old. Emma heated her soup and settled at their small kitchen table with her homework. Around her, photos of her parents smiled from every available surface, her mother's bright eyes so similar to Emma's own, her father's gentle smile that Emma tried to remember but couldn't quite capture. "Your parents would be so proud," Grandma Maggie always said. "They raised you to be kind, even in just those 2 short years." Emma touched the silver bracelet Lily had given her. wondering about her new friend. Lily's coat had looked so warm and new, nothing like Emma's hand-me-down jacket with the broken zipper. But Lily's eyes had been sad, just like Emma's sometimes were when she looked at her parents' photos. The apartment was quiet, except for the upstairs neighbors arguing again and the distant sound of traffic. Emma finished her homework by the light of their single kitchen lamp. They'd learned to keep the electric bill low. At 8:30, Emma heard familiar footsteps on the stairs. "Grandma!" she called, running to unlock the 3 different locks Margaret insisted on. Margaret Watson entered, her grey hair escaping from its bun, her cleaning uniform wrinkled from a long day. Despite her exhaustion, her face lit up when she saw Emma. "There's my sunshine," Margaret said, pulling Emma into a warm hug that smelled of industrial cleaner and love. "How was school, sweetheart? I made a new friend today," Emma said, not mentioning the cafe or how she'd spent her allowance. "Her name's Lily." "That's wonderful, baby. Friends are treasures." Margaret's tired eyes sparkled. "Now, did you eat your soup?" As they prepared for bed in their shared bedroom, they couldn't afford 2 rooms. Emma watched her grandmother count out bills for tomorrow's expenses. Margaret always tried to hide their financial struggles, but Emma understood more than her grandmother realized. "Grandma," Emma whispered in the dark. "Yes, sweetheart? Do you think Mom and Dad would want me to help people when I can?" Margaret's voice was soft and full of love. "Oh, Emma, I think they'd be prouder than words could say." Emma smiled in the darkness, thinking about Lily and wondering what tomorrow would bring. She had no idea that in a penthouse across town, a very different bedtime routine was unfolding. 27 floors above the city, 9-year-old Lily Harrison sat in her custom wheelchair before floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the glittering skyline. Her bedroom was larger than most people's entire apartments, filled with toys she rarely touched and books she read to escape her loneliness. "Time for your medication, Miss Lily," said Carmen, her live-in caregiver, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been with the family since the accident 2 years ago. Lily dutifully took her pills, medication to help with the phantom pain in her legs, vitamins her doctors insisted she needed, supplements that were supposed to help with her physical therapy. She'd grown used to the routine, just like she'd grown used to everything else since October 2022. "Will Daddy be home tonight?" Lily asked, though she already knew the answer. Carmen's expression softened. "He's in meetings until very late, sweetheart. But he left you this." She handed Lily a small wrapped gift, another attempt by James Harrison to replace his presence with expensive gestures. Inside was a beautiful music box that played Lily's favorite song, one her mother used to sing to her. Lily's throat tightened. These gifts always reminded her of what she'd lost, rather than showing her what she still had. "Carmen, do you think I'll ever have a real friend? Someone who doesn't know about?" She gestured around the opulent room. "What do you mean, mi amor?" "Someone who likes me for me, not because of Daddy's money or because they feel sorry for me." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Today I met this girl at the cafe. She bought me a cookie and milk with her own money, even though she didn't have much. She didn't look at my wheelchair like it was all she could see." Carmen sat on the edge of Lily's bed, listening intently. Since the accident that took her mother and confined her to the wheelchair, Lily had become increasingly isolated. Private tutors, medical appointments, and physical therapy filled her days, but real friendship had been elusive. "Her name is Emma," Lily continued, touching the simple friendship bracelet she'd impulsively given the girl. "She didn't ask me what happened to my legs or why I was alone. She just was nice." "That sounds very special," Carmen said gently. "Will you see her again?" "I hope so, but what if she finds out who my father is? What if she only wants to be my friend because we're rich?" Lily's biggest fear was that people would never see past her father's wealth to know the real her. Carmen tucked Lily into her king-size bed, surrounded by pillows and the soft glow of a constellation projector on the ceiling. Another expensive substitute for genuine connection. "You know what I think?" Carmen said. "I think real friends are rare treasures, and if this Emma is genuine, she'll like you no matter what." As Lily drifted off to sleep, she thought about Emma's bright smile and the way she'd shared her hot chocolate without hesitation. For the first time in months, Lily felt a flutter of hope. 3 floors above, in his home office, James Harrison worked late into the night, unaware that his daughter had just experienced her first moment of genuine friendship in 2 years. If he had known, he might have understood that what Lily needed most couldn't be bought in any store. But tomorrow, Emma would return to the cafe, and neither girl could imagine how their friendship would change both their lives forever. Emma clutched her allowance money tightly as she entered Rosa's cafe the next afternoon, her heart beating with anticipation. She'd thought about Lily all through school, wondering if her new friend would really be there. And there she was, sitting in the same spot by the window, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sunlight. Lily's face lit up when she saw Emma, and she waved enthusiastically. "Emma! You came back!" Lily's joy was infectious, and Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. "I told you I would," Emma said, approaching with a shy smile. "I brought something for you." She pulled out a small origami crane she'd made from colorful paper. "Grandma taught me how to make these. She says they bring good luck." Lily accepted the paper crane with reverence, as if Emma had handed her a precious jewel. "It's beautiful. I've never gotten anything handmade before." Mrs. Rodriguez watched the girls with growing fondness. Over the past week, she'd witnessed this unlikely friendship bloom. Emma would arrive every afternoon with just enough money for a small treat, but somehow she always managed to buy something for Lily too. "What can I get you girls today?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked warmly. Emma counted her coins carefully. "2 hot chocolates, please." She looked at Lily. "Unless you want something else?" "Hot chocolate is perfect," Lily said softly, though she noticed Emma only had enough for 1 drink and a small cookie. She watched in amazement as Emma bought 2 hot chocolates anyway, leaving herself without anything to eat. "Emma, you don't have to keep buying things for me," Lily protested gently. "I can pay for my own." "But that's what friends do," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "They take care of each other." As they sipped their drinks, Lily shared stories about her physical therapy sessions, carefully avoiding any mention of their cost, or the expensive equipment in her home gym. Emma talked about school and her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who always let her stay late to use the computers for research. "Do you want to see something cool?" Emma asked, pulling out a small, worn notebook. "I'm writing a story about a girl who can fly. Want to hear it?" For the next hour, Emma read her handwritten story aloud, complete with different voices for each character. Lily listened, captivated not just by the story, but by Emma's animated expressions and genuine creativity. "You're really talented," Lily said when Emma finished. "Have you shown this to anyone else?" Emma shrugged. "Just Grandma. She says I have a gift, but I think she's just being nice." "She's not just being nice. This is really good." Lily hesitated, then asked, "Would you like to come to my house sometime? I have lots of books we could read together." Emma's eyes widened. "You really want me to visit?" "Of course. You're my best friend." The word best made Emma's heart soar. She'd never had a best friend before. "I'd love to, but I'd have to ask Grandma first." As Carmen arrived to pick up Lily, the girls made plans to meet again tomorrow. Emma waved goodbye, watching the sleek car disappear into traffic. Walking home to their basement apartment, Emma's steps were lighter than they'd been in months. She had a best friend now, someone who listened to her stories and laughed at her jokes and made her feel like she mattered. But as she pushed open their apartment door, she had no idea that tomorrow would bring a discovery that would change everything. Margaret Watson dropped her cleaning supplies by the door and sank into their threadbare armchair, her 72-year-old bones aching from another long day. She'd been scrubbing floors at Harrison Industries until 9 o'clock, the same routine she'd followed for the past 2 years since landing the night cleaning contract. "Grandma!" Emma bounced over, bubbling with excitement. "Guess what? Lily invited me to her house." Margaret's tired eyes focused on her granddaughter's animated face. Emma had been glowing for the past week, chattering constantly about this new friend, and Margaret couldn't help but smile at the change. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Tell me about this Lily." Emma settled on the carpet at Margaret's feet, her legs crossed like a pretzel. "She's really nice, and she's smart, and she knows lots of interesting things. And Grandma, she has this really pretty bracelet that she gave me." Emma held up her wrist, showing off the silver chain. Margaret's cleaning weathered fingers gently touched the bracelet, and her eyebrows raised slightly. Even in the dim light of their apartment, she could tell this was real silver, possibly expensive. "This is very nice, Emma. Lily must come from a well-to-do family." "I guess," Emma said, not really understanding the implications. "She gets picked up in a big car, and her babysitter seems really nice. But Grandma, the best part is that she doesn't make fun of my clothes or ask why I don't have the same things as other kids." Margaret's heart clenched. She worked so hard to provide for Emma, but there were always reminders of what they couldn't afford. New clothes, toys, experiences that other children took for granted. "Emma, honey, I need to ask you something important. Have you been spending your allowance on this friend?" Emma's cheeks flushed pink. "Maybe a little, but she needed help. And isn't that what you always say? That we help people when we can?" "Oh, my sweet girl." Margaret pulled Emma into her lap, despite her exhaustion. "You have the biggest heart, but I worry about you giving away money we need for necessities." But Grandma, she was sad, and buying her a cookie made her smile. "Isn't that worth more than keeping the money?" Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. Emma's generosity was both beautiful and concerning. How could she explain their financial situation without burdening an 8-year-old with adult worries? "You know what, Emma? Tomorrow is Saturday, and I don't have to work until evening. Why don't we go meet this Lily together? I'd like to see where you've been spending your afternoons." Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? You want to meet her? Of course, any friend who makes you this happy must be pretty special." As Margaret helped Emma get ready for bed, she thought about the silver bracelet and the expensive car. She hoped this friendship wouldn't lead to heartbreak when the differences in their circumstances became apparent. But tomorrow would bring revelations that neither Margaret nor Emma could imagine. As Margaret tucked Emma into their shared bed, she had no idea that she cleaned the office of Lily's father every single night, walking past his nameplate and family photos without ever making the connection. The truth was closer than anyone realized, and it would change everything. Saturday afternoon found Margaret and Emma walking hand in hand toward Rosa's café, Emma practically skipping with excitement. Margaret had dressed in her best outfit, a navy blue dress she reserved for church and special occasions, wanting to make a good impression on her granddaughter's friend and family. "There she is," Emma called out, pointing to Lily, who was sitting at their usual table by the window. Margaret's breath caught as she took in the scene. The child was beautiful, with perfectly styled blonde hair and clothes that probably cost more than Margaret earned in a month. But it was the wheelchair that made Margaret's heart ache with empathy, and the way Lily's face absolutely radiated joy when she saw Emma. "Lily, this is my Grandma Maggie," Emma announced proudly. "Hello, Mrs. Watson," Lily said politely, extending her hand. "Thank you for letting Emma be my friend." Margaret was charmed by the child's manners and the genuine warmth in her voice. "Please call me Miss Margaret. Emma talks about you constantly." As they settled at the table, Margaret watched the interaction between the girls with growing amazement. Emma's natural kindness shone as she helped Lily navigate around other customers, and Lily's gratitude was touching and sincere. "Emma," Margaret said gently, "why don't you go order us some hot chocolate while I chat with Lily for a moment?" When Emma was out of earshot, Margaret leaned forward. "Lily, honey, I need to ask you something. Have you been letting Emma pay for your drinks and snacks?" Lily's cheeks reddened. "I tried to stop her, Miss Margaret. I told her I could pay for myself, but she says that's what friends do." "And what does your family think about that?" Lily's expression grew complicated. "My father doesn't really know about Emma. He's always working, and Carmen, my caregiver, just knows I've made a friend. But Miss Margaret, Emma is the first person who's been nice to me without knowing." She gestured around uncertainly. "Without knowing what, sweetheart? Without knowing who my father is, or feeling sorry for me because of my wheelchair? She just likes me for me." Margaret's heart melted a little more. "And who is your father, if you don't mind me asking?" "James Harrison. He owns Harrison Industries downtown." The world seemed to tilt sideways for Margaret. Harrison Industries, the building she cleaned every single night, the office on the 42nd floor where she dusted family photos showing a man with a blonde little girl. The nameplate she'd read thousands of times, James Harrison, CEO. "Did I say something wrong?" Lily asked, noticing Margaret's sudden pallor. "No, sweetheart, not at all," Margaret managed, her mind reeling. She cleaned this child's father's office. She'd seen photos of Lily on his desk, including some showing her before the accident, running and playing. She'd even noticed when new photos appeared after Lily's accident, showing her in the wheelchair, but always smiling bravely. Emma returned with 3 hot chocolates, completely oblivious to the revelation that had just rocked her grandmother's world. As they spent the afternoon together, Margaret found herself studying Lily with new eyes. This was the daughter of one of the city's most powerful men, and somehow her granddaughter had befriended her through pure kindness and genuine caring. When Carmen arrived to collect Lily, Margaret watched the expensive car drive away with a mind full of questions. She'd been walking past photos of Emma's best friend every night for months, without realizing it. "Isn't she wonderful, Grandma?" Emma asked as they walked home. "Yes, sweetheart," Margaret replied, her voice thoughtful. "She certainly is." But Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that this friendship was about to become much more complicated than either of the girls could imagine. Margaret Watson stood in the elevator of Harrison Industries that Monday night, her cleaning cart rattling, as they ascended to the 42nd floor. For 3 years, this had been routine. Tonight, everything felt different. The elevator dinged, and Margaret pushed her cart down the familiar hallway toward the corner office. "James Harrison, CEO," gleamed on the brass nameplate she'd polished countless times. But now she knew. This was Lily's father. Inside the spacious office, Margaret began her usual routine, but her eyes kept drifting to the family photos lining James's desk. There was Lily at 7, running through a park with a beautiful woman who must have been her mother. Another showed the 3 of them at Christmas, all smiles and matching pajamas. The most recent photos showed Lily in her wheelchair, but still smiling bravely. Margaret picked up a framed photo of Lily from just last month, the same bright smile that had charmed Emma at the café. Her heart ached thinking about the tragedy that had changed this family forever. "Working late again, Mrs. Watson." Margaret jumped, spinning around to find James Harrison standing in the doorway. At 45, he was tall and distinguished, but his eyes held the same sadness Margaret had noticed in his daughter. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were still here." Margaret's voice trembled slightly, clutching the photo. "Please don't apologize. I seem to practically live here these days." James noticed the photo in her hands. "That's my daughter, Lily. She's 9 now." Margaret's mouth went dry. "She's beautiful." "She is." though I'm afraid I don't spend nearly enough time with her." James's voice carried deep regret. "Since my wife died and Lily was injured in the accident, I've thrown myself into work. Not my finest parenting moment." Margaret felt her heart breaking. For this man, who clearly loved his daughter but didn't know how to connect with her. "Mr. Harrison, if I may, children need their fathers, especially when they're hurting." James looked surprised by the gentle boldness from his cleaning lady. "You sound like you speak from experience." "I've been raising my granddaughter since she was 2. Her parents died in a car accident." Margaret's voice softened. "She's 8 now, and every day is a gift. But children heal faster when they know they're loved. Your granddaughter is lucky to have you." James studied Margaret with new interest. "What's her name?" "Emma. Emma Watson." Margaret watched James's face carefully, but there was no recognition. Of course, Lily probably hadn't mentioned Emma's last name. I bet she and Lily would get along well. Lily could use more friends her age. Margaret's heart raced. Should she reveal the truth, that their daughters were already best friends, that Emma had been spending her precious allowance buying treats for his daughter? "Mr. Harrison," Margaret began carefully, "what if I told you that Lily already has a very special friend, someone who cares about her deeply?" James's eyebrows raised with interest. "Really? Carmen mentioned she seemed happier lately, but Lily hasn't talked to me about any friends." "Maybe," Margaret said gently. "It's time you asked her." After James left, Margaret finished cleaning with a heavy heart. She had a decision to make that could change everything for both families. But first, she needed to talk to Emma. Emma sat, cross-legged on their apartment floor, carefully crafting another origami crane for Lily while Margaret prepared dinner. The silver bracelet caught the light as Emma's small fingers worked the colorful paper. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to talk," Margaret said, settling into her chair with a heavy sigh. "Am I in trouble?" Emma looked up with worried eyes. "No, baby. But I learned something today that might be important." Margaret chose her words carefully. "You know how I clean offices downtown?" "Uh-huh. Well, it turns out I clean the office of Lily's father." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? That's so cool. Did you tell him about me?" "Not exactly." Margaret struggled with how much to reveal. "Emma, Lily's father is a very important man, very wealthy. Their family lives very differently than we do." "So? Lily doesn't care about that stuff." Emma's innocence shone through. "She likes my origami cranes better than expensive things." Margaret's heart clenched. "But what if other people think you're only friends with her because of her family's money?" "That's silly, Grandma. I didn't even know her family had money until you told me." Emma's matter-of-fact response highlighted her genuine character. "Besides, Lily needs friends who like her for her, not for what her daddy has." The next afternoon at Rosa's café, Emma presented Lily with a new origami crane, this one made from gold paper she'd found in the school art room. "It's gorgeous," Lily breathed, handling it like precious treasure. "I have a whole collection of your cranes on my windowsill now." "Really?" Emma beamed. "I'm so glad you like them." Mrs. Rodriguez approached their table with a knowing smile. "Girls, there's someone here who'd like to meet you." They turned to see a tall, well-dressed man standing hesitantly by the counter. Lily's face went pale. "Daddy?" James Harrison approached, slowly, his expression uncertain. "Hello, sweetheart. Carmen told me I might find you here." Emma looked between Lily and the imposing man, suddenly understanding that this was Lily's father, the one who was always working, the one Lily rarely talked about. "Daddy, this is Emma," Lily said quietly. "My best friend." James knelt down to Emma's level, his voice gentle. "Hello, Emma. I've heard you've been very kind to my daughter." Emma's natural politeness kicked in. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Sir, Mr. Harrison, but you can call me Mr. James." He looked at both girls carefully. "I was wondering if you two would like to join me for dinner this week. I think it's time I got to know the friend who makes Lily so happy." Lily's eyes filled with tears of surprise. You want to have dinner together? All of us? If Emma's grandmother agrees, James said, I'd very much like to meet her too. As Emma excitedly agreed to ask her grandmother, she had no idea that Margaret and James had already met, or that this dinner would reveal secrets that would change both their lives forever. Margaret's hands shook slightly as she selected Emma's best dress, a navy blue hand-me-down that was still presentable but clearly showed their modest circumstances. They were having dinner at the Harrison penthouse, and Margaret felt completely out of her depth. "Grandma, you look beautiful," Emma said, admiring Margaret's carefully styled grey hair and her one good dress. "Thank you, sweetheart. Remember your manners tonight, and don't touch anything unnecessarily." The Harrison penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming downtown tower. When the elevator doors opened directly into their foyer, Emma gasped audibly. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and artwork that probably cost more than Margaret's annual salary filled the space. "Welcome," James said warmly, though Margaret noticed his surprise when he saw her. "Mrs. Watson, we meet again." "You two know each other?" Lily asked from her wheelchair, looking between them curiously. "Your father and I have crossed paths," Margaret said diplomatically. Emma, oblivious to the undercurrents, was enchanted by everything around her. "Lily, your house is like a castle." "It's too big," Lily said simply. "Come see my room." As the girls disappeared down a long hallway, James and Margaret stood in awkward silence. "I didn't realize," James began. "Neither did I, until Saturday." Margaret's voice was steady. "Emma doesn't know I clean your office, and Lily doesn't know Emma is your granddaughter." James ran his hand through his hair. "This is complicated. It doesn't have to be. The girls genuinely care about each other." In Lily's bedroom, Emma was overwhelmed by the luxury. A bed larger than her and Margaret's entire sleeping area, toys that filled built-in shelves, and a view of the city that took her breath away. "Do you like it?" Lily asked uncertainly. "It's amazing," Emma said honestly. "But Lily, don't you get lonely in such a big space?" "All the time," Lily admitted, "especially since Mommy died. Daddy works so much, and Carmen is nice, but she's not family." Emma sat on the edge of Lily's enormous bed. "I get lonely sometimes too. Our apartment is really small, but sometimes when Grandma's working, it feels huge and empty." "I wish you could live closer," Lily said wistfully. "Me too." Back in the living room, James and Margaret continued their careful conversation. "Emma has been spending her allowance buying things for Lily," Margaret said gently. "She doesn't have much, but she shares everything." James's expression grew thoughtful. "Lily mentioned a friend who bought her cookies and milk. That was Emma. Every day last week, she goes without lunch sometimes so she can afford to treat Lily." "Dear God!" James sank into a chair. "I had no idea. I give Lily a credit card for emergencies, but she never uses it at the café because she doesn't want Emma to know about your family's wealth. She's afraid Emma will treat her differently." During dinner, served in a dining room that could seat 20, the conversation flowed more naturally. Emma was politely impressed by everything but never seemed intimidated. She asked thoughtful questions and shared stories about school and her grandmother. "Emma writes the most amazing stories," Lily told her father proudly. "She read me one about a girl who could fly." "I'd love to hear one of your stories," James said to Emma. "Really?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Grandma says I have imagination, but I've never read them to anyone else besides her and Lily." As the evening progressed, James found himself charmed by Emma's genuine nature and impressed by Margaret's quiet dignity. These weren't people trying to take advantage of his wealth. They were a family rich in love and character. But the evening's biggest revelation was yet to come. 2 weeks later, Margaret arrived at Harrison Industries for her usual Monday night cleaning routine. But tonight felt different. James had been leaving small notes of appreciation for her work, and she'd started looking forward to their brief conversations when he worked late. She was dusting his desk when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. An appointment book lying open, with Emma Watson, background check written in James's neat handwriting for tomorrow's date. Margaret's hands trembled as she stared at the words, a background check, on her granddaughter. Her mind raced with possibilities. None of them good. Was he investigating them? Did he think they were trying to take advantage of his wealth? Mrs. Watson? Margaret spun around to find James standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Mr. Harrison, I see you found my appointment book. James stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. I imagine you have questions. Margaret's protective instincts flared. If you think Emma or I are trying to take advantage of your family, that's not what this is about. James's voice was gentle but serious. Please sit down. Margaret remained, standing, her cleaning rag clutched in her hands like a shield. Mrs. Watson, what I'm about to tell you must stay between us for now. James moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. For the past 2 weeks, I've watched my daughter come alive in ways I haven't seen since before the accident. She laughs again. She talks about her day. She's excited about tomorrow. Emma brings out the best in her, Margaret said carefully. Yes, she does. But Mrs. Watson, I need you to understand something about our situation. James turned back to face her. When my wife died and Lily was injured, I hired the best security team money could buy to protect my daughter. We've had incidents, people trying to get close to Lily because of who I am. Margaret's anger began to cool as understanding dawned. The background check isn't because I suspect you of anything, James continued. It's because I want to help. Your family and my security team insists on protocols before I can offer any significant assistance. What kind of assistance? Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. Emma shouldn't have to choose between lunch and buying her friend a cookie. You shouldn't be working 3 jobs at 72 years old. James's voice grew passionate. But if I simply write you a check, it creates complications, questions from social services, tax implications, potential legal issues. Margaret sank into the chair she'd refused moments earlier. I've been researching. Scholarships for Emma, better housing options for both of you, ways to help that don't compromise your independence or dignity. James sat across from her. But everything requires documentation, verification, background checks. You want to help us, Margaret said slowly, trying to process this revelation. Mrs. Watson, your granddaughter saved my daughter from drowning in loneliness. How could I not want to help her in return? That night, Margaret walked home with her mind spinning. James Harrison wasn't investigating them as threats. He was investigating them as potential beneficiaries of his gratitude. But she couldn't shake the feeling that accepting help from someone so wealthy would change everything, possibly destroying the very friendship that had brought them together. The next morning, Emma bounced into the kitchen with her usual energy. Grandma, can we go see Lily today? I made her a whole family of origami animals. Looking at her granddaughter's bright face, Margaret realized she had an impossible decision to make, one that would affect both their futures. Saturday morning found both families in Rosa's café, but the atmosphere was charged with unspoken tension. Emma chatted happily with Lily, while Margaret and James exchanged meaningful glances across the table. Emma, James said during a lull in conversation, your grandmother tells me you're an excellent student. I try really hard, Emma replied modestly. Education is important. Grandma always says it's the one thing nobody can take away from you. That's very wise. James smiled at Margaret. What's your favorite subject? I love reading and writing stories, but I also like math because it makes sense. Numbers don't lie. Emma's mature response impressed James once again. Lily had been unusually quiet, picking at her muffin. Finally, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "Daddy, are you and Miss Margaret talking about grown-up things we're not supposed to know about?" The adults exchanged startled glances. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" James asked gently. "Because you both look the same way Carmen does when she's trying to figure out how to tell me something I won't like." Lily's perceptiveness was remarkable for a 9-year-old. Emma reached over and took Lily's hand. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. That's what best friends do." Margaret felt her heart breaking. "Girls, there's something we need to discuss." "Are you going to make us stop being friends?" Lily asked in a small voice. "No, both," the adults said simultaneously. "Then what?" Emma asked, her natural optimism beginning to waver. James knelt beside Lily's wheelchair. "Sweetheart, you know how Daddy tries to take care of you by making sure you have everything you need." Lily nodded. "Well, I'd like to help take care of Emma and her grandmother too, because they've taken such good care of you." Emma looked confused. "But we don't need taking care of. We take care of each other." Margaret's eyes filled with tears at her granddaughter's dignity. "Emma, honey, sometimes accepting help is another way of helping others." "I don't understand." James chose his words carefully. "Emma, when you buy Lily cookies and milk, how does that make you feel?" "Happy, really happy. And when I want to help, your family have nice things. It makes me feel the same way. But if you say no, then I don't get to feel that happiness." Emma's brow furrowed as she processed this. "So by letting you help us, we'd be helping you too." "Exactly." But Lily had been listening with growing alarm. "Daddy, does this mean Emma's family doesn't have enough money? Is that why she always pays for things?" The moment Margaret had been dreading had arrived. "Lily, we don't have very much money, that's true. But we have something more important. We have love. But Emma's been spending her allowance on me when she needed it herself." Lily's voice rose with distress. "Because that's who Emma is," Margaret said gently. "She has a generous heart." Lily turned to Emma with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have paid for my own things." "Don't be sorry," Emma said fiercely, squeezing Lily's hand. "I wanted to buy things for you. It made me happy to see you smile." "But you went without lunch." It was worth it. James watched this exchange with growing amazement. These children had achieved something many adults never managed. Pure, selfless friendship. "Girls," he said softly, "what if we could arrange things so that Emma never had to choose between lunch and being kind to her friends?" Both girls looked at him with hopeful expressions. "What do you mean?" Emma asked. "I mean," James said, looking at Margaret for permission, "what if your family never had to worry about money again?" 1 year later, Emma Watson stood in the garden of the Harrison estate, watching Lily practice walking with her new prosthetic legs. The doctors had said it was impossible, but Lily's determination and access to the world's best medical care had proven them wrong. "Emma, look!" Lily called out, taking careful but steady steps across the grass. "I'm really doing it!" Emma clapped enthusiastically. "You're amazing, Lily." The past year had brought changes none of them could have imagined. James had quietly established a trust fund for Emma's education and purchased a beautiful house for Margaret and Emma, modest by Harrison standards, but a palace compared to their basement apartment. Margaret now worked as Lily's private tutor 3 days a week, a position that utilized her wisdom and gave her financial security while maintaining her dignity. Most importantly, the girls' friendship had not only survived their changed circumstances, but had flourished. Emma attended the same private school as Lily now, where her natural intelligence shone. She still made origami cranes for Lily, still wrote stories that captivated everyone who heard them, and still possessed the same generous heart that had started their friendship. "Girls," Margaret called from the terrace, where she and James were, reviewing Emma's latest school report. "Come see this." The girls hurried over, Lily walking carefully but independently, Emma bouncing with her usual energy. "What is it, Grandma?" Emma asked. Margaret held up a letter with an official seal. "Emma, you've been selected for the Young Writers Program at the university. They want to publish your story about the girl who could fly." Emma's mouth fell open. "Really? They want to publish my story?" "Not just publish it," James added with a proud smile. "They want to feature it in their annual collection of outstanding young authors." Lily squealed with delight. "Emma, you're going to be a famous author." "I can't believe it," Emma whispered, then looked around at the three people who'd become her family. "None of this would have happened if I hadn't met Lily. And I wouldn't be walking again if I hadn't met you," Lily replied, taking Emma's, and James put his arm around Margaret's shoulders, a gesture that had become natural over the months as their friendship had deepened into something more. "You know what I think? I think your parents would be incredibly proud of the young woman you've become, Emma." Margaret nodded, her eyes bright with tears of joy rather than sorrow. "They would be proud of both of you girls. You've shown us all what real friendship looks like." As the sun set over their beautiful garden, Emma reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them all together. It had started with $3.47 and a desire to buy a sad girl a cookie. Now, two families had become one, held together by love, generosity, and the simple truth that kindness always comes back to you. Lily squeezed Emma's hand. "Promise me we'll always be best friends no matter what." "Forever and always," Emma replied, meaning every word. And as they watched the stars appear in the darkening sky, both girls knew that some friendships are so strong, so pure, and so genuine that they can overcome any obstacle and transform not just two lives, but everyone around them. James looked at the three most important people in his world and smiled. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in the smallest packages, like an 8-year-old girl with $3.47 and a heart full of love.